Have you ever said, I need to write a book? I have a story to tell. I bet you that story is important to the world. You may think it's a small story, but small stories have huge impact. In today's video, we'll highlight the story that you haven't written yet, part two. And the reason that we want to continue to go into this subject because I know the world is waiting to hear what you have to say. And so we're going to highlight different elements of a story and see if they would help us and encourage us to write these stories. We're going to tackle theme, premise, and dilemma. We're going to tackle, as in every story, the want, the belief, and the fear. When I wrote Sounds of the Ambulance, it's written as a movie. And the way that things are going now, we have YouTube, right? And so the way AI is developing, we would soon have you movie where you would be able to plug in your story and it can be generated into a movie, just like uh, we have developed, a lot of us have developed our own television station or studio through YouTube. So things are progressing, AI is really going forward. And so even with this you movie, you're going to have structure. And that's what the 51 Beats of Power and many of these templates that I've developed will allow us to have and to help us along this journey. And so, theme. What is theme? Theme, why it matters. Why does your story matter to the world? Why does it matter to you? Why tell this story? In this particular story, Sounds of the Ambulance, the theme is the good life is not a geographical location. That's something that I had to learn the hard way by going to different places, different cities, trying to find the good life, not realizing that the good life is within. It has to start there. And so I wanted to tell that story. And Sounds of the Ambulance helped me to develop that story. So in your story, what is it that you want to tell? Why does it matter? So think about that when you're thinking about the theme. Like before beginning to write your story, think of what story do I want to tell? Because we have so many stories and we can't tell them all at one time. And so the next thing is the premise. What happens? This is why it matters. The premise is what actually happened in your story. Okay, again, it Sounds of the Ambulance. A small town girl joins the army to find the good life until the good life in the big city failed her. This is the premise. This is what happened in the story to tell the good life is not a geographical location. Okay. Not only that, the premise, once you start writing the story, there's another template that we have called the mechanics of story, of how you put all these different elements into the story. But when you write in this premise, is who are we tracking and why? That's going to be very important because we can't tell all of these stories at once. So we have one character to tell this story, why it matters, the good life is not a geographical location. So what happens is a small town girl joins the army. This small town girl in this story is Margaret. That's who we're tracking. Why are we tracking her? Because she's in search of the good life. And we're going to see if she's going to find it or not and why it matters. Okay. Dilemma. Dilemma is the conflict or tension having to choose between two different options, both having drawbacks or consequences. So, in Sounds of the Ambulance, Margaret received information, mantras, from two different people. This is her dilemma. Her dad taught her your enemy should not be those of your own household. When she joined the army, her sergeant taught her the stakes are always life or death. No matter what you're going through in life, the stakes are very high. They are always life or death. And in the end, she's going to have to choose one of these concepts. That's dilemma. So last week, we covered catalyst. What is the catalyst? The catalyst is what starts, it's the ignition switch in your car. So we have these advanced story parts that I've spoken of before. That's another template that's in the description, right? So, how I was able to understand it within myself, I related these story parts to auto parts. The theme is what is like the tires and rims. It's what your whole story is going to ride on. The premise is your windshield. That's what your whole story is looking through this premise of a small town girl joining this army to find the good life. You're looking outside of your windshield and not even seeing it because you're focused on the hero's journey, the destination, which is the good life is not a geographical location. She's going to learn this, and in the end, that's the destination. The dilemma is the route that we're going to take to get you there. But the catalyst is the ignition switch and the car play. So, in this particular story, Sounds of the Ambulance, the catalyst is on Zealous' porch. So Zealous tells Margaret, you're going to be back just like the rest of them. And that fear was implemented in her. And she never wanted to come back because she didn't want to face Zealous, right? So, but in the catalyst, it describes Margaret saying, it got to be more to life than just Tuscaloosa, right? After the catalyst, that's when the dilemma starts. And the dilemma ends when you have to make that choice, the big battle of the declaration of war or either the stunning surprise too, which we'll cover those in another video. But what I wanted to say is that these elements, think on these elements when you begin to develop your story. What is your thing? Why it matters? What actually happens in the story? And how the conflict that you're going to have, this dilemma that the character's going to always have throughout the story to get you to the big fight of saying, now she gets it or he gets it, right? They learned something. What did you learn? That is the resolution. So in this story, in every story, you have a want. What does the character want? What does the character believe? What does the character fear? When you begin to develop your story and you have this main character, what does that character want? This job, does the character want the love of her life? Does this character want the love of his life? Does the character want, it has to have a want, a desire, right? What does the character believe about that desire? How they're going to get it? Because the belief will motivate your actions. Your actions will confirm your belief. Here, Margaret believed that the army would get her what she wanted, the good life. Then, when she met this man, she believed that this man is going to get her the good life. So her belief changed, but her want did not. Fear. You have the want, the good life, the belief that if I join the army, I will get it. If I've met this man, I believe that this man could get me the good life. What is my fear? My fear is not coming back to Tuscaloosa. Okay. When we look into these stories and they are in movie form, we have the 3-act structure, the 4-act structure. And we'll speak about those a little later also. But I put them into 4 blocks. The setup is the first block. The good is in the second block. The bad is in the third block. And the resolution is in the final 4th block. Um, and we'll speak about these a lot later. But in today's video, I just wanted to stress about the temperament. Writing is a lonely sport. And sometimes you're going to be discouraged. In those moments, you have to return to your theme. Why does this story matter? If I want to encourage young girls, okay, and I get discouraged about my writing, I turn back to the theme. Why it matters? Why does this story even matter? And then I can get back to what happens to develop this story. Uh, but always keep in mind, if you're a new writer, that I'm learning to write. I'm an author in process. And it would encourage you to keep going in moments where you may feel a little discouraged. And this is why we have developed the 51 Beats of Power, advanced story parts, the KL suspense tools, and a lot of other tools that we have that's in the description that I would encourage you to get. The mechanics of story would tell you how all these different elements fit into one. Just like a car has different parts, the engine, the transmission, and they all work together to get you to a certain place. That's the mechanics of story. So again, I encourage you guys, write your story. It is important to the world. You may think it's a small story, but small stories have huge impact. Be encouraged, and if I can help you in any way, the link is in the description. Give us a call, and we'll help you get past any writer's block that you may have. Thank you for watching this video, and stay encouraged.